So good morning. I'm in northern Kansas, a little town called Herington. And this is where I stayed last night. And I'm just getting rolling this morning. I'm going to be getting out here on Highway 177. That's what this is. And heading north. I'm about 46 miles from, well, probably closer to 50 miles from the horse trailer plant up here in Manhattan, Kansas. So that's where I'm headed this morning to go pick up this trailer. But I drove on up last night. I got the call yesterday afternoon to come get this thing. I'm going to take it from clear up here in Manhattan, Kansas, clear down to Salado, Texas. So this is going to be a pretty good paying job. So I've had a couple of decent weeks. This is like the first job on this week's pay, or maybe it's the second, I'm not sure, because I had 2 other trailers I hauled. One last week and then finished up a load Monday. So I'm not sure how it's going to divide up. So either I'll have a crummy week paycheck the next week and then a really good one the week after, or I'll have 2 decent paycheck weeks. We'll see. No, it's already starting out like I got people up my butt. And this is not, there was nobody on this road last night. It's not a heavily traveled road necessarily. But the people that are on here like to run about 75 or so. And I'm not going to do that. Y'all know why. I got a CDL to protect, you know. But most people don't, so they just run however fast they want to go. Getting a ticket for a person without a CDL is a nuisance, and it's a pain in the butt, and it costs money. But unless you get a bunch of them, then you can lose your license over it. But if somebody's getting that many tickets, they don't care anyway if they've got a license or not. I have to have my license to be able to work, so, you know, there's the difference. I had a weird dream. It actually woke me up, and I was like, well, I might as well get up. I was planning on sleeping just a little bit longer, like another 30 minutes, but I was like, no, I'm just going to get up. That was too weird. I had this really stupid dream that my house was like just at the end of this hallway. It didn't have any doors or anything, but all my stuff was there. And I don't know if it was actually my stuff, but it was a bunch of stuff in there, supposedly mine. And I went and for some reason, I stayed somewhere else for a while, and then I went back to my place, whatever that means in a dream, which is very bizarre. It wasn't my house. It wasn't like my real place. And I get there and it's like ransacked. And I don't even look around or anything, because it's just like a pile of junk. It looks like, you know, somebody stirred it up with a stick, thinking this isn't right. You know, no kidding. And then I'm thinking, well, my phone is gone and my truck keys are gone, and whatever I thought of that, you know, was kind of a necessary thing for me to have, it all seemed to be gone. But I didn't really like look around or dig through this pile of stuff. I just assumed it was gone, so I just turned around and left. I don't know what that all means. And I think I was like, man, I wish I hadn't put my Twitter password on my phone or something, some stupid thing like that. You know, like, oh, now they got my Twitter password. I have no idea. I have some really weird dreams sometimes. Just goofy. So I was happy to discover when I woke up, all my stuff was where it was supposed to be. All one bag of it in my purse, you know, it's all there. Like, okay, that was just a weird dream. very odd, pretty strange. But it was kind of unsettling, you know. Sometimes dreams can make zero sense, but they kind of unsettle you a little bit. That was one of those. Kind of a goofy dream, but and I'm not ever sure what to do with dreams like that. The ones that wake me up and leave me scratching my head like, what the hell? What was that about? What? Yeah, so anyway. It's pretty weird. But dreams can also be something other than a dream. And it's hard to believe even when you've had a dream that was something other than a dream. And I've had, in my lifetime, at least 2 of them that were something other than a dream. Yeah, something else. One of them was a prophetic dream, and the other one was a visit from my dad after he died. So, something else is going on out there besides just weird, goofy, random, wacky dreams. And there's so much that we don't know. You know, we like to pretend as human beings that we know everything that can be known, you know. We like to give ourselves credit for knowing all this stuff that's going on around us and in the world. And we do know a lot. I mean, we're not stupid inherently. Well, some of us aren't stupid inherently. And some are, it appears. But for the most part, we've kind of got a grip, you know. But we don't like thinking about how much we don't know, can't prove. We don't have a scientific method that operates in certain areas. But it's kind of like, if you think about it, it's kind of like radio waves. You know, radio waves have always existed, but we haven't always known how to see them until somebody invented a receiver to receive them so we could see them. Here he goes. Good. Get off my ass. Thank God. See what I mean? You know, I'm doing 65. No, I'm actually doing 68. I'm going downhill. That's how people like to drive up here. So it's just kind of one of those things we don't really like to think about. We're kind of uncomfortable thinking about how much stuff we really don't understand that happens in the world. And we tend to discount these things as, oh, it's, you know, it's like a gas bubble. it's just a dream. Well, there are dreams, and then there are things that are not dreams, but they're something else. But they happen when you're in a receptive, dreamlike state. And I guess I can tell you about both of mine, the ones I can think of right off the top of my head. I think I've had things like this happen a couple other times, but the 2 that stand out to me the most, the first one was a prophetic dream, and it was back in 1991, I think, and it was like a month before my youngest niece, I think she's my youngest niece, yeah, my youngest niece was born. And she's obviously a grown woman now, but before she was born, I had a dream. And I was talking to my brother in this dream, my youngest brother, John. And he was telling me that his kid was going to be born on my birthday. and that this kid was going to be a girl. And he was very specific, and it was like I was just talking to him. It wasn't like some vague, misty, weird dream. It was just, we're just talking, and he was telling me this. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. He says, yeah. He says, she's going to be born on your birthday. I'm like, well, that's really neat. I'm kind of excited about that. Well, then I woke up, and I was like, wait a minute, that was like a dream, but it wasn't a dream, I don't think. So I called my sister-in-law, or I called my brother, and I think I got my sister-in-law. And she's like, no, she said, we're going in next week, and they're going to induce the baby, and we think it's a boy. I'm like, okay, well, John told me in a dream that it's a girl, and she's going to be born on my birthday. So she's laughing about it, I'm like, okay, well, that's funny. Well, sure enough, they did not induce the baby when she had thought they were going to do it. And she was born on my birthday, and she was a girl. So I don't know how you explain that, There's no rational explanation for that. There's no scientific explanation. My dad had a similar dream when I was a kid. I had a cousin who was in Vietnam. His name was Larry Stice, and he had volunteered to go to Vietnam, and he went, and my dad had a dream one night, and I could hear him talking to Mom. He woke up, and it woke me up. He was out in the hall, I think. He must have gotten up to go to the bathroom or something, and he was out in the hall, and he was talking to Mom, and he said, I had this dream that Larry got shot, and that it killed him. And Mom was like, oh no, I remember this vividly. And it was a couple weeks later when my mom got a call. It was one of her aunts, I think, that called her from Denver and told her that Larry had been killed in action. He was shot by a sniper over in Vietnam. So, Dad's dream was one of those. It wasn't unambiguous, or it wasn't ambiguous at all. It was very unambiguous. It was very specific. And he knew, he said he just knew. And it was weird, he knew. And he couldn't shake the feeling. And of course, when they got the news, so he figured it must have happened. That must have been when he got killed, was when he had that weird dream or whatever it was. So these are things that happen to people. And my dad had it. I've got it to some degree. And then I had one other dream, which wasn't a dream. And that was the one where my dad came to see me after he died. And that was weird. That was trippy. Because I've always heard about people, they get visited by their dead relatives and that. Well, I've never been visited by any of my dead relatives. I had a dream after my grandpa died that he showed up, and I was like, oh, you're dead. And he disappeared. So that, I don't think that was the same thing at all. I think that was just me coping with the idea that he was gone. But when I dreamed about my dad, I say dreamed, I don't know that it was a dream. I think it was a visitation. It was like we were sitting and just having a conversation. But he didn't look like him, but he was him, if it makes any sense. So, people say, oh, I dreamed my relative came to see me and they looked like they were 30 years old. Well, he did look like he was about 30 years old, but he didn't look like himself. He looked like somebody else, kind of, but I knew it was him. It was really weird. That part of it was the part that kind of freaked me out a little bit, because it's like, that's just strange. And, but the way he was dressed and his mannerisms and all that were the same. The way he was talking, it was his voice, and, he was the same. So I knew it was him, he just didn't quite look like him. But he told me all kinds of stuff that was really funny. And my dad was a funny guy. He was a real droll, dry-humored, smart aleck, well, smart-assed, sarcastic at times. He was very funny. He was very, very funny, but in kind of a droll, understated, dry kind of way. And that's how he came across in this dream. So I'm like, well, where are you? He says, I'm at the Nuclear Ranch Motel. I'm like, the Nuclear Ranch Motel? He's like, yeah, that's where I'm hanging out. He says, man, it's hot here. I'm like, it's hot? He's like, yeah, it's hot here. I'm thinking, this is weird. You know, that's just a strange thing to say. And so we went on and had this conversation. He was telling me, you be sure and tell your mom that, you know, you should be sure and tell your mother that I love her. And, you know, like that. This was probably like a month or two after he died. So I said, well, I will. I'll tell her. And my mother at the time was having troubles with her memory. She had some I guess kind of mild dementia going on, so it was kind of weird dealing with her. But so we had this whole long conversation. He told me all kinds of stuff, and I actually wrote it down so I'd remember it. But it was vivid. It wasn't like, well, I think he might have said this, or it was a little bit of that. It was very specific, the things he was saying. You know, and they were relevant. They were like something you would say when you went to visit somebody that you knew you weren't going to see again for a long time. It was just weird. It was just very weird. So went through this conversation. He was like, okay, well, I better go. I'm like, okay, well. He says, well, I'll see you around. I'm like, okay. It was just strange. It was like visiting with him in life. You know, it was just odd. Because in my dreams anyway, anytime I'm having a conversation with somebody, it's never like it is in real life for me. It's always weird. There's always weird stuff about it that makes it different than talking to somebody actually, because like, you know, you'll get a fragment of a conversation or something will change, or the background or the scenery will change, something weird, you know, because your brain's doing all this weird stuff while you're sleeping, I guess. They think. But that was a visit from my dad. You know, it wasn't a dream. It wasn't like, he wasn't telling me stuff I wanted to hear. He was saying things, specific things that he wanted to tell me, which I thought was really weird because I had been there when he died. He got a lump under his arm in like August or September of 2017, and they operated on him in the first part of February, the end of January, first part of February. He was gone by the end of February. He had a really aggressive form of cancer, and he had come and told me and my brother when he was living. He came out while we were working on my house, and he said, you know, he says, I got this lump, and he says, it's probably going to kill me. I was like, wow, this is really shitty. He's like, yeah, but, you know, it's pretty much what I'm dealing with. I'm like, oh, man. So we were just kind of like, damn. And it did. It ended up killing him. But he was almost 86 years old. He died, like 8 days before his 86th birthday. But Mom and my sister, my older sister, and me were there when he died. We went and sat with him because he had been failing, and my sister and I had gone over. He was in a rehab place in Marlow, and we went over there the day before to visit him. My sister and I did, and he was doing his physical rehab, but he wasn't really doing much. And the lady called us in that ran the place later that day, and she said, we're not doing any more physical therapy on him. It's like torturing him at this point. We're just going to leave him alone. And my mom was like kind of out of it. She wasn't catching on to what was going on, but I'm like, are you saying he's on his way out? And she's like, yeah. She said, it'll probably happen this weekend. I'm like, oh. okay. So I was, trying to kind of mentally prepare for it. So we went and saw him, and he was not doing great. And he told me, he said, "Get your mother the hell out of here." I'm like, okay, I will. So I did. I took her out. Well, she got a call about 5 o'clock in the morning the next morning, and she went on over to the nursing home we was at, the rehab part, and then they called me and my sister, and we went down there about half an hour after she got there, I guess, and he was pretty much gone. His body was still breathing, but he was gone. And then we just sat there for probably, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes, and he just quit breathing. So it was real peaceful, but it was weird because he had left the room before we ever got there that day. He was gone. It was just his shell, was just still there. So it was very weird, kind of surreal type of thing, but, it's not the first time I've seen a person die because I was a cop, so, but it was different because he was mine, he wasn't a stranger to me, and it was just different, it wasn't the same as seeing somebody else go. Very odd. It's a really weird, terrible feeling, but at the same time it was a little bit of relief for him because he had been in a lot of pain. He was dealing with a lot of stuff, so it's one of those deals. But there are some things that happen that are not dreams, but they are something else, and we have no yardstick to measure them with. We don't know what these things are or what they mean, and it's just kind of weird. It's really just kind of strange, I'm gonna run through the Starbucks up here. There's one up on the other end of this Junction City, I think. So I think I'm going to run through there and get a cup of coffee, which will be nice because I've got none right now. So it makes me wonder why we have like really weird dreams, and then why we have things that aren't dreams. I guess you have things that aren't dreams either because it's something that you've inherited as a trait from somebody. Like, I'm pretty sure I inherited that from Dad. Kind of like I inherited my internal compass from Dad. I can pretty much tell which direction I'm going just because I can tell. One of those deals. I can kind of feel north, and I can pretty much stay oriented to north for the most part. There are a couple of places where I get a little turned around. A couple of river towns mess me up. For some reason, the magnetism's different or whatever. But I think that's something I inherited from Dad, just like my brother, he's got that too. My brother Wes, he's got that same directional thing going on. He can pretty much feel the directions, but he also got perfect pitch from my mother. I didn't get that, but he did. So, you inherit different traits, right, from different parents. So, here's my Starbucks exit. So he got that. I don't know if he got the other thing from Dad. I don't know if any of them did because they don't talk about it. If they did get it, they've never really told me about it. And you know, some people probably wouldn't talk about it even if they did have these like little kind of prophetic dreams, because they don't know what to do with it. It's like kind of crazy, you know, to think that you could know something before it happens and in specific detail, you know. So I don't know. You know, I don't know if I'm the only one who got it. Dad didn't talk about it a lot. He talked to me about it once because I asked him about it. I was like, how did you know? So when I got older, I didn't really trust my memory about him having that dream. But he confirmed it for me later because I did ask him. I was like, and he's like, yeah. He said, I just had a dream that they told me. I was like, oh, okay. Weird, huh? He's like, yeah, it's really weird. You know, and he wasn't like a wackadoodle in any way. He's a very practical, straightforward guy. I think this lady in front of me is trying to get in line here. Oh, maybe not. Maybe she's gonna go turn around. I was gonna let her in, actually. I guess I'm not now. Oh, she left. Maybe she decided she wasn't that interested. Well, that's good. I don't have to wait on an extra car then. So I don't know, it's just a weird thing. So I don't know if my siblings have this or not. No idea. Y'all remember this song?
Every day's the same since I met you. It's such a pretty world today, knowing that you're mine, and happiness is close to you.
I better not play any more of it than that, or they'll get me. the YouTube people will get me for playing too much of a song. That's a song from the 1960s, the early to mid 1960s, and the guy singing it, his name is Wynn Stewart. And he was hugely popular in the 60s. He recorded a lot of songs. But that was his most famous, I think, of all from that era. He had been recording all through, I think, the late 50s too. But he ended up dying young of alcoholism. Pretty sad. But that's still one of the songs I associate with being a kid in the 60s. One of the things we heard on the radio. Of course, back in the 60s and 70s, when you turned on the radio, you didn't have a country music station or a rock and roll music station. You had a music station. And they played all the different genres of music. Whatever was popular, they played. Which I think was so much better than just having, you know, everything all segregated like we have now. We went from being in a segregated society to an open society, but we went from open music channels to segregated music channels. It's really weird. And I'm not talking about racially with the music. I'm talking about just, it's just weird that they divided everything up.
Good morning. Thank you for choosing Starbucks. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. What can I get started for you?
Can I get a bacon egg bite?
Any Sriracha avocado spread to go with that today?
No, just the egg bites.
Okay, what else for you?
A venti decaf cafe mocha made with heavy cream.
Are we keeping the whipped cream?
Yeah,
What else for you?
that's it.
Have the bacon egg bites and the venti decaf mocha made with heavy cream. That'll be $12.40 at the window. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I also got to get diesel at some point. It's going to be expensive up here. I haven't seen it very cheap. Well, it's $3.49 over there. I guess it doesn't have to be that expensive. Maybe I'll get it there. Check and see if Gas Buddy will tell me anything useful. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
Morning at
Good
12:40.
morning.
Just gonna ask you a question real quick. There you go.
Thank you.
1 second. Bacon egg bites.
Okay.
There you go.
Awesome, thank you.
Have a good day.
Have a good one. Okay, so that's their cash price, $3.49. I don't know what their price is at the pump, but that's still 30 cents cheaper than anybody else. So I guess I'm gonna go buy fuel over there, 40 cents cheaper than most of them. So I've kind of lucked out to be able to get fuel anywhere that cheap around here. It's kind of weird the way that's been working out lately. I keep ending up in the place I need to be to get the inexpensive fuel. If I can just find a way to get over there, I think this might be the way. We'll find out. $3.49. That's pretty good. That's actually 2 cents more than I paid at the cheapest place in Duncan yesterday. So, you know, I don't know. This is all right. This is A-okay with me. What is it actually? $3.55.9. So it's 10 cents more than what it has on the, oh, it's 6 cents more. Well, that's just the way they screw you here. So I guess I'll get it anyway because it's still cheaper than anybody else. It's not as good as I thought it was, but it's still better than elsewhere. So I'm not going to cry about it too much. I'm just going to do it. what it is with these damn places. Their pump's not working. I don't know if they've got diesel over here or not. I think they might. I've seen this at a few places and it's kind of aggravating, but you know, it's not going to keep me from trying. I guess. Farther than that. Okay, so now we just wait. It's pumping. Windshield looks nicer, yeah? Damn, that's good coffee. Say what you want about Starbucks politics, which I utterly and completely and totally disagree with, but their coffee is really freaking good. And that's what I want from them. I don't care about their political shit. I just want their coffee. Just want the coffee. Still pumping. I don't know if I get it completely full or not. Depends on where they stop you at. I'll put on as much as it'll let me without running the card again. I don't like running the card multiple times. I do it sometimes, just usually at the very beginning of a trip. And sometimes if I have to, if I think I'm gonna be like in a real high price or a no diesel available area, I'll put on as much as I can get on it. Or if it's just really good and cheap. But this isn't all that good and cheap. It's cheaper than everybody else, but these little birds out hopping around, they're probably glad winter's done with, so they're not cold all the time. It's looking like spring up here now, late spring. It's a lot springier than it was the last time I was up here. I think the last time I was up here, the leaves were just coming onto some of the trees. Okay, it looks like it's about full. I'm gonna hop out and check this. I'll be back. Okay, so it stopped me at $100. These places would make more money on fuel if they just let you fill the damn tank. But because everything's controlled by the credit card companies and the banks, this is what we have to deal with. That's a bank policy and a credit card policy, not a truck stop policy. Did you know that? It's the banks that do this shit to us. So yeah, all right. I'll log this shit now. Keep my logbook here. So 7:30. To my stuff here, 29136. Right. Filling out my trip envelope. This is how I keep track of my expenses for my jobs, and that's how I can tell how much money I'm making on a job. It's my my method. And it's worked for me all the years I've been doing this. Right, so I am ready. I'm almost full, not quite. See, if they would just let me run it till it's full, they'd have sold another $15 worth of fuel. That's how dumb that is. You know, they're hurting themselves. They're not hurting me, they're hurting themselves. Letting the banks pull that shit on them, but I guess that's what they have to do because the banks run the universe, I guess. They run the financial universe, that's for damn sure. So, you know. Especially for these places that take credit cards. And then they rate them for a percentage of every credit card sale. So I was reading the other day about how important it is to use cash, and I totally agree with that, but I can't carry enough cash to buy diesel with. I don't want to be carrying, a couple grand on a long trip and then get rolled, and then, that wouldn't be good. Lose my cash and be stranded. So it's impractical, but I use cash now. I'm starting to use it more for everything else. Everything I do locally, especially like for the eBay stuff, the eBay business, buying stuff. Because I deal with a lot of small businesses and of course individuals, buying stuff that they don't take credit cards, and I'm glad they don't. Because if they did, they would jack the prices up on everything to cover the fees. Which, that's what you do as an eBay store. You hike the prices up to cover the commission and the fees and the shipping and all that. That's how the world works. The person in the middle, or the retailer, they're not paying for the expensive costs of business. It's the people at the end of the transaction, the buyers, the public. We're the people who pay for all this stuff. So, we just don't stop and think about it. But every time I buy gas or diesel, I'm paying their credit card fees on top of taxes on top of the diesel. So, there's a lot of different layers of expenses built into that. I look at it as one price, but it's really not. It's really three different things. It's your basic diesel cost that their retail price, plus all of the state and federal taxes and whatever, local, state, and federal, and all of their expenses that they have to pay to make that happen. That's all calculated into that gallon price. So if we didn't have to pay taxes and all that shit, our diesel would probably be about, $2 a gallon right now, something like that. It wouldn't be very high. But that's the world we live in, so, got to deal with it. I don't have to like it, but I do have to deal with it. So I'm not going to spend too much time griping or crying over it, because I can't change it. But I can where I'm able to, and where I can carry enough with me to do it. I can deal in cash and not contribute any more funds to these damn banks. That's for sure. Okay, 1 3/4 miles to my turn off. I'm not going to take that turn off though. I'm going to go to the next one. It kind of cuts across, but I have to go clear through Manhattan from one end to the other. It's kind of a pain in the butt. It's not a little bitty town. It's a pretty good town, pretty good sized town. If I go to the next exit on down the road about, 15, 20 miles, I can go straight up and almost be at the factory when I get into Manhattan. I don't have to go through that much of it. Coming in from the south side. Going in from the west side, I have to cross through all of it. And I also want to check and see if it's true that 177 is closed south of there, because that's where I'm headed for 177. I was looking at it. I was going to go up that way this morning, but as it turns out, it looks like 177. I guess it is closed because they're showing this as a detour for it. It looks like they closed down 177 from I-70 down to whatever the cross highway is, 56 or whatever it is down there. So I guess it probably is shut down. So I won't be going back with the trailer that way. That was my preferred route, leaving out and heading out of town, was to just go straight south on 177 all the way down. But evidently, I don't know if they're like replacing the bridge or what they're doing. No clue. I just don't know. I don't know. Clark's Creek. That's what that is. Clark's Creek. I-70's not so bad these days. It's a lot better than I-40. For some reason, the farther south you go on the interstates, the more heavy the truck traffic is. And I know if you go north up to I-80, that's heavy truck traffic. So I'm not sure why I-70's any different, but it seems like it's just not all congested with trucks. And I'm enjoying that about it. It kind of makes it okay to drive up here, you know. I mean, there are a few, but they're not running bumper to bumper like they do, you know, on the other ones. So that's all good. Anyway, I don't think I said it specifically, but we're headed eastbound on I-70. That's what we're doing right now. Scenic River Road to Manhattan. Huh. I don't think I'll be taking that route. It sounds slow. It sounds like something you would do on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, not on a work day. I guess if you wanted to do it, that's the exit to do it on, though. 307. So I'm about 18 miles out from the plant. I'm 14 miles from Manhattan, but I got to go a couple miles once I get to Manhattan, a couple miles out east. Get this thing picked up. They opened at 7 o'clock, but I decided I wasn't going to get up super early and go running up here and be there right at 7 because I didn't have to. It doesn't make any difference what time I pick it up today because it's not going any farther tonight than my house. And then I'll get up in the morning early and take it on down to Salado. So, yeah, it's going to be broke up into 2 days anyway. Sometimes I forget to look at it like that, and then I get myself all in it. You know, I get my panties all in a bunch, so to speak, trying to hurry up, you know, when there's really no reason to hurry, as long as I just get it done. So, I actually did have that in mind. And like I say, if that weird dream had awakened me half an hour early, I would have slept until 7. It was like, okay. I guess I'm up. So it looks like this has been burnt recently. All these hills. I feel like we need to do that with our place, just burn it once. Burn the fields. We've only got 12 acres, but it's 12 acres of weeds, pretty much. Well, weeds and blackberries and plums, so I don't really want to burn all those down, but there's a lot of, like, grass and weeds. Probably the best way to handle that is get a goat, or 2 or 3, which we may do one of these days if we ever get around to fixing the front fence well enough to hold them. Our side fences are okay, so our neighbor maintains them. He runs cattle, so he keeps the fences good around us, but our fence across the front is in pretty crappy shape. It's got all kinds of stuff growing up in it, and some of the wires are down. Which is with everything that's happened with Bill, that hasn't been high on our list of priorities to do anything about, obviously. There's a lot of things around there that have not been high on the list of priorities because of the deal with Bill. You know, that moved right to the top and stayed there. So anyway, the deal with Bill, and I don't think he'll mind me saying it because he talks about it openly. It's not like it's any big secret. A few years ago, was it like 2019, I think, or 20? It's either 2019 or 2020. I can't remember. Might have been 2020. He was having these weird pains, and they like moved all over his body. And he was always telling me, oh, this hurts, that hurts, this hurts, that hurts. I'm like, well, go get checked out and see what's going on. So you go to the doctors. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong. So he went to several doctors, and none of them could figure this out. And I was starting to think that, you know, maybe he's got something else going on. Well, finally, he went to one doctor who kind of said, well, let's take a look. So he scheduled him for a colonoscope, or colonoscope, however you say that. Scheduled him for that. Got him, well, he found a big old tumor in his colon, and they didn't know for sure what it was, so they biopsied it and they sent it out, and they still didn't know what it was. The lab they sent it to couldn't figure out what it was. So it was kind of weird because he called us in and he said, well, we're sending it out to a different lab, but it doesn't look like cancer. And this was the surgeon. He wasn't an oncologist or anything. So we're thinking, oh, well, good, it's not cancer. Well, what is it? Well, that road is closed. Okay. My gosh, it is. So they sent it to this other lab. Well, this other lab did identify it, and so we got sent up to a specialist in Norman. Bill had his choice of like 2 or 3 guys, and he picked the one guy he thought that his surgeon was friends with. He said something about he knew him and he was friends with him, so he picked him. Because he couldn't give him a recommendation, he could just give him, some names, and he had to decide who he wanted to go see. So that's the guy he picked. Well, that guy, we went up to his office, and he had gotten the results back from the second lab. And he says, oh, I know exactly what you've got. He says, you've got neuroendocrine cancer. And we're like, well, crap. Because we were told it wasn't cancer. And he says, oh, no, it's cancer. It's neuroendocrine cancer. And he says, you need to go see Dr. Boudreau in Kenner, Louisiana. He's the guy to see. And this guy that we went to, who was telling us this, had just got done interning for Dr. Boudreau. So he absolutely knew what he was talking about. He had been treating people who had neuroendocrine cancer. That was his specialty. So it's kind of crazy, to get that right away. So we went down there, and it was very harrowing because it was stage 4. It was all through his body and his bones and his organs everywhere. He was just full of these tumors, and it was pretty dire. And he had lost a bunch of weight. He was looking very poorly. I mean, he was looking really bad. And he had got down to where he didn't even weigh as much as I do. And he's a big guy. I mean, he's a lot bigger than me. Big frame. And so I was afraid he wasn't going to make it, I think he kind of was too. But we went down there and we stayed there for a month. We were supposed to go down for a week. He was supposed to have surgery and then come back and then start some special treatments, some targeted radiation treatments. Well, it didn't work out that way. We got to the hospital the end of October, and there was a hurricane that night. Not a great big one, but it was a hurricane went through. And we were staying in the travel trailer at the KOA down in Kenner because I knew I had to wait there for him while he was in the hospital. So we took the travel trailer so we could stay there and not be parked at a motel where our truck would get stolen or whatever. We parked in the KOA, in the fence and all that. So anyway, we were there. So the night before, and he was miserable. I mean, Bill was just miserable all this whole time. He was in pain, just miserable. And so the night before the surgery, he was really feeling bad. So we went to a motel because of the hurricane. I thought, well, we'll probably be better off in a motel than in a travel trailer in a trailer park with a bunch of trees in it. So that's what we did. And then the power was out at the motel, so it was hot and it was miserable. And then we had to get up like at 4:30 in the morning, get over to the hospital by 5 or whatever, and get him checked in, get him ready for surgery. So we did all that. It was just terrible. It was awful. And then they got him prepped up for surgery, and they gave him some injections in his back, some kind of blocks or whatever. And he was kind of out of it. So he was in surgery all damn day, pretty much all day. And then finally they got him out of surgery. They put him up in the ICU. And then they had to take him back into surgery 4 more times in the next 3 or 4 days. So he had 5 surgeries altogether. He had complications. One of their surgeries they were trying to do with some kind of a robot, and it wasn't working, and that was terrible. And then he got infected, I think. I don't think it was quite septicemia, but they had to go back in and do some other stuff. So and I didn't think he was going to survive the third. The third operation was the worst one, and I didn't think he was going to make it, but he did. He's a lot tougher than I give him credit for. So he went through all that, and they put him out on the floor the second day after his surgeries. Well, they had to take him back in and do all the revision surgeries. So he was in ICU for almost an entire month. He got out like the end of November. So for almost a whole month we sat there while he was in ICU. And it was touch and go for the first 2 weeks, really, pretty much. But he toughed it out. He got through it. he started getting a little better, and then I brought him home, and he was really tender for quite a while. I mean, they did some pretty extensive digging around in there, and they did a lot of stuff internally to him, took out a lot of tumors and stuff, and then just kind of totally screwed him up, I think. But you know, it took a while for him to get readjusted and for everything to heal up in there. But so then after that, like a few months later, I think it was January or February, he went in for his targeted radiation therapy. And what they did was they put a radioactive isotope in his bloodstream, and it circulated, and it goes and it attaches to these tumors. For whatever reason, it's attracted to them, so it'll attach to them, and then they target the radiation to the isotopes, and then they zap it, and it kills the tumors. And so that actually was pretty successful. The first time they did it, I took him down there, and then I had to drive like most of the way back. He drove part of the way back because he was feeling pretty good. By this time, he was pretty much recovered from the surgeries and stuff. He was just, the treatment was what got to him. So he was in terrible pain. By the time we got to like Mount Pleasant, Texas, I had to stop and get a motel because he just couldn't stand to sit. And they didn't give him any pain medicine. And they didn't warn him about this, that he needed to bring any pain medicine. And I couldn't get anything for him because his doctors were in Louisiana and Oklahoma, and Texas doesn't dispense pain medications unless the doctor's a Texas doctor. So he had to ride all day the next day in terrible pain because these tumors were dying. You know, they were fighting, all the nerves were raw, and they were fighting back. So he had to ride all day like that. It was horrible. Every time I'd hit a bump, it just about killed him. I was like, oh my God, this is just awful. So finally I had to take him up to his oncologist's office in Norman before we could even go home. And she called in some prescriptions for him. So it's like 4 p.m. the next day after all this, before we even got the prescriptions for him, and then got him home. So it was awful. He was in such pain. And there was nothing I could do. You know, there was just nothing I could do. And I was pissed because there was nothing I could do. That was terrible. So he got through all of that. And then the second time he went back for it, it wasn't so bad at all. He didn't feel bad at all. So then after that, he just drove himself. Because it was that initial one was the one that was so, well, let's see, where do I go here? I guess I go up here. The initial treatment was the one that, you know, really did the damage to the tumors, and that was the one they were all screaming and fighting back, and, you know, that really caused him all the pain. So the second and third, I think he had 4 of those. Those treatments weren't so bad. He got through those just fine. So, and I should have gone a little bit of a different way here. I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. That's all right. We're still on track. I just got to get back over to my road. Gosh. So he had all that, and then they did some more radiation. He was having pain in his back, so they decided there was a tumor in his spine that was giving him trouble. And they zapped it with some radiation, just like, I don't know, 10 or 15 seconds, that was it. And it killed that one off enough to where it quit hurting his back, which is kind of weird because he had thought for years that his kidneys had been hurting him, you know, because it was in that area where it was hurting, and every once in a while it would flare up. Well, evidently he had that tumor in there on his spine for years. So anyway, he went through all this. It was, you know, pretty awful, all the stuff he had to go through, but it was pretty successful because he's doing a lot better. They've got it kind of under control. It's like this doctor that he went to, Boudreaux, he told him pretty much, he says, you're always going to have this. You're going to die with this disease, but you probably won't die from it. So it was like, okay, well, at least that's encouraging, because, you know, here it was stage 4, dire straits. You know, just sounded really bad, and it is really bad, but, you know, it turned out that there was something they could do about it, which was good, obviously. It's pretty awesome. Oh, I hate roundabouts. Annoying things. So anyway, that's what he has been going through for the past couple of years. Is all these treatments and stuff, and every month he goes and has a special treatment that is a shot, and he gets this shot, and then he also gets sorry, I'm paying attention to what I'm doing here for a minute because I got to get over to this other road. He also gets infusion to keep his bones strong. 'Cause evidently, what happens is when they kill off the tumors in their bones, the tumor kind of leaves an empty shell, you know, where it had been, and it leaves a hollow spot in the bone, I guess, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so they have to give him a bone strengthener to fill in, hopefully grow back some bone in those areas and keep the bones from breaking. So, and that's the one that makes him feel bad when he has that. He usually feels crappy for a few days after he has that. So once a month he gets to go do this stuff. And he'll be doing that forever. That's just, you know, this is just what he's going to be doing. So, and I need to stop and plug in my address because I'm not thinking I'm on the right road yet. I think that might be it over there, but I need to find out for sure. Gosh. Okay. I get involved in talking and can't think. Simmer on. Okay. All right. This is good. Now I know where I need to go. Turn around over here. Get back out here. Come on. Give me specific instructions here, would you, please? Okay, I think it wants me to go back that way. Court Frontage Road. Let's see. I think this might be wrong. For some reason, I'm not getting real clear instructions out of this thing here. What the hell? Where do you think I am? Oh my gosh. Okay. This is just not really fucking helping me a bit. Okay. I'm gonna have to plug it in on my other GPS because my phone is not giving me details I need, which is highly annoying. Annoying. Jeez. All right. So what's my address? Oh, for God's sakes. Come on. The address go Green Valley. Oh, for Pete's sake. Ah. Drive. DR. Oh, for God's sakes. Okay. I'm 2 miles away from this place and I can't find my road. Okay, that's what I thought. So let's do that then. For some reason, my phone is not where it thinks it needs to be or whatever. So that's what I thought. I thought I was on the right track. And I didn't trust myself. So, you know. Okay, so I was on the right track. I haven't come in from this direction before I got myself turned around and going in through town instead of just staying out here on the edge. That's what I get for not paying attention. So that's where I just pulled in and pulled back out of. So I was headed the right way. Thought I was. Just second guessing myself. It's so much easier these days than it used to be. Like when you get turned around or something. And I was just talking about having a built-in sense of direction. I do. I mean, I could tell what direction I was going, but I couldn't tell where I was supposed to be. You know, couldn't figure it out. In my defense, this was not all torn up for construction last time I was here. So maybe that's what's throwing me off. Or maybe it's just because I'm being dumb. That could be too. So anyway, so that's what Bill was going through. Well, at the same time that we found out Bill had this cancer, I got a call from my doctor like a couple of days later after we had gone up and found out that, yeah, it was cancer and all this. I got a call from my doctor and she said, you got a problem. We ran all your labs because I'd gone in for my annual physical. She drew blood and everything. She says, you've got hepatitis C. I'm like, what? She says, yeah, you got hep C. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, this is so dumb. I can't deal with this right now. It's like, my husband's got cancer. We just found out. I'm all freaked out. She's like, yeah. She said, I'm gonna refer you to a specialist up in Oklahoma City, and you can, you know, get in with them. And she said, it's not urgent. You don't have to go like this minute, but you need to take care of it. I'm like, okay. So then we were trying to figure out where I could have gotten it because I don't have any risky behaviors that, you know, they normally cite for it. And she said I hadn't had it very long. She figured no more than 3 years, just because of the load, whatever. She was explaining it to me anyway. So come to find out, I probably got it from my dentist because I had some pretty extensive dental work done a few years before. And I had been going to one dentist who I really liked, and then I got shuttled off to his brother who was also a dentist, and his business partner, when the original guy had a heart attack and kind of retired. Well, his brother was terrible. He was not the dentist that the other guy was. He was rough and he was just crappy, and I hated it. I ended up not even having the work finished by him, but I had prepaid for it, so I'd have most of it done, but then I had to have some fine-tuning done by different dentists because it was just awful. So I think it was probably his office that wasn't doing their cleaning. That's what we kind of narrowed it down to anyway. That was the only place we could think of where I could have been exposed at all. Even though I had been a cop, that had been like 10 years before, so it was outside of the range of when I could have been infected with it, I guess. I don't understand how they figure all that shit out, but that's what they said. So we had a bad couple of years there. Once he was in the clear and at least doing better, you know, then I went in and did the treatment for the Hep C. Then I come to find out I had hepatitis B on top of it, which I had no idea. It's like these people, these dirty, damn people, not doing a good job, you know, sterilizing stuff. They infect more people. Evidently, this is a thing. They were telling me up there when I went for the treatment that it's very common these days for people to get infected with hepatitis of all varieties from dentist offices and, you know, dirty medical offices. That's the number one way people get infected. They tell you that it's from other stuff, but they said no, it's mostly from it's mostly from that. So yeah, I'll be back. We'll go get this trailer. And let's see, I got my number here. We'll see what it's going to be. I don't even know what it is yet. I'm fixing to find out. Okay, shall return. Okay.
Find out more. Well, thank you. In victory rather than in vain, teach them to wear.
Oh, stop. The radio in this thing just comes on automatically. It's not like, you know, old radios where you turn it off and it was off till you turned it on. This one's on until you turn it off. So I'm looking for trailer 231, 5231.